She married a horrible beggar just to win a bet, but on the wedding night he showed up with a jet and security. The ugly man was a millionaire in disguise all along, and what he did to her afterwards, nobody could believe it. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us from which city you are watching us. We continue. The first rays of sunlight were already illuminating the avenue when Bianca Tavares turned off her cell phone. Alarm. Another day was beginning in the life of the 32-year-old marketing executive, considered one of the most promising at the Impacto Comunicação agency. Sitting on the edge of the king-size bed in her apartment in the Jardins neighborhood of São Pascal, she gazed for a few moments at the view of the metropolis through the panoramic window. Another day, another battle, she thought as she walked to her closet to choose the perfect outfit for her client meeting. Bianca knew that in the world she lived in, appearance was almost everything. Her designer clothes, imported shoes, and designer bag were not just accessories, but status symbols that she cultivated with surgical precision. The daughter of successful businessmen from the countryside, Bianca built her career with determination, but also with the awareness that doors opened more easily to those who fit the standards. Her natural beauty, enhanced by aesthetic treatments and daily gym workouts, was a work tool as important as her degree from the best communications school in the country. After an exhausting meeting, where she won yet another $1 million account for the agency, Bianca received a message in the WhatsApp group called Untouchables, a name that her close circle of friends had chosen years ago on a champagne-soaked night to symbolize the place they occupied at the top of the social pyramid. Tonight, Fabian's coverage. Impossible to miss, there are new people in the area. Dress code stunning, as always. 10 p.m., no delays, please, said the message from Carolina, her friend since college. Bianca smiled. The parties at the triplex penthouse owned by Fabian, Müller, the heir to a construction company, were always unmissable events. She went to the salon for a hair treatment and manicure before choosing a red dress she had bought on her last trip to Paris. The night was just beginning when Bianca stepped out of the elevator on the top floor of the city's most exclusive building. Electronic music, laughter, and the clinking of glasses filled the room, decorated with a minimalism that only old money can provide. Finally, the queen of advertising has arrived, Fabian exclaimed, coming closer to kiss her on the cheek. Come, I want you to meet someone. As she walked among the guests, receiving looks of admiration and envy, Bianca felt at home. Everyone there was either beautiful, rich, or influential, usually a combination of the three. She greeted Carolina, Leonardo, and Daniela, the core group of the Untouchables, who were chatting animatedly near the infinity pool. So, what's new tonight? Bianca asked, accepting a glass of champagne offered by a waiter. Carolina gave the others a knowing look before answering. We're thinking about making this evening more interesting. I'm listening, Bianca raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Do you know about the Avenida project? Leonardo asked, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. What? That NGO that works with homeless people, replied Bianca, confused. Exactly, Carolina continued. Fabian is thinking about making a substantial donation to them, part of the image cleansing of his father's construction company. But the interesting thing is that we discovered something peculiar about one of the project coordinators. Fabian joined the group at that moment, bringing with him a tall, elegant man that Bianca didn't know. Guys, this is Gustavo Moreau, the construction company's new CFO, Fabian introduced. After the introductions, the conversation returned to the previous topic. We were talking about the Avenida project, Daniela explained to Gustavo, and about this Pascal Henry guy. Bianca noticed that the name seemed to spark some interest in Gustavo, who disguised it by taking a sip of his drink. Pascal Henry? Bianca asked. Yes, he's an interesting character, Fabian replied. Everyone thinks he's just another volunteer, practically a homeless person. He dresses like one, walks around town like one, but rumor has it that there's much more behind that facade. What kind of rumors? Bianca asked, increasingly intrigued. Nobody knows for sure, Carolina interrupted. He appeared out of nowhere about a year ago. Some people say he's a psychologist doing some kind of social experiment. Others swear he's a renegade heir to some important family. He's smart, Leonardo added. I talked to him once when I was covering a story about homeless people for the magazine. He has knowledge of literature, philosophy, economics. He's not your typical profile. Bianca took another sip of champagne, trying to hide her growing interest. There was something about this story that intrigued her deeply. And that's where our little diversion of the evening began, Daniela said with a mischievous smile. We were wondering how long it would take for someone like Pascal Henry to fall in love with a woman in our circle. A bet? Bianca asked, beginning to understand where this conversation was going. Exactly, Fabian exclaimed. We wondered how long it would take for you specifically to win over someone like him. Gustavo, who had remained silent, finally spoke. That seems inappropriate. It's just a harmless joke, Carolina defended herself. Besides, Bianca is an expert at making men fall in love with her. Bianca felt the weight of the gazes on her. On any other occasion, she would have refused immediately. It went against her professional principles. However, something about the situation awakened a curiosity in her that she couldn't explain. Maybe it was the boredom of superficial relationships. That always ended the same way. Or maybe it was the challenge of meeting someone so different from her usual circle. And what would I gain from that? He asked, maintaining his composure. Besides the satisfaction of overcoming yet another challenge, Leonardo teased, Fabian is willing to donate 100,000 to the charity of your choice. Isn't that buying feelings? Asked Bianca, still resistant. Look on the bright side, Fabian argued. You meet someone different, an institution benefits, and we all have a little fun. Gustavo shook his head in disapproval, but remained silent. Bianca thought about her last failed relationship with a financial executive. So predictable, so superficial, so just like all the others. Maybe it was time for something different. And how do you know he'll be interested in me? He asked. Well, Bea, Carolina laughed, you're irresistible when you want to be. And besides, men are men, no matter what social class they're from. That comment bothered Bianca more than she cared to admit. There was something degrading about the way her friends spoke, as if people from different social classes were separate species. And if I accept, how would that work? She asked, still undecided. Simple, Fabian explained. You have 3 months to make Pascal Henry fall in love with you. Concrete evidence will be necessary, of course. What kind of evidence? Bianca frowned. A declaration? Maybe a kiss in public. Something that proves that you won him over, suggested Daniela. Bianca's phone vibrated. It was a notification from Instagram. She automatically unlocked the screen and began to scroll through her timeline, seeing perfect photos of seemingly perfect lives. Suddenly, it all seemed so empty, so artificial. I accept, she said suddenly, surprising even herself. Her friends celebrated enthusiastically, except for Gustavo, who watched her with an indescribable expression. That night, as she rode home, in the back of an Uber, Bianca questioned her decision. Why had she accepted such a ridiculous bet? What did it say about her and the world she lived in? More importantly, who was Pascal Henry really? And why did the idea of meeting him resonate so much with her? The next morning, Bianca decided she would go to Projeto Avenida, not to start the bet, but to better understand what she was getting herself into. She dressed simply, in jeans, a white t-shirt and sneakers, an outfit so far from her usual wardrobe that she almost didn't recognize herself in the mirror. The Avenida project was located in a restored old mansion in the center of São Pascal, near Praça da República. When Bianca arrived, she found the place bustling with activity. Volunteers were organizing donations, while vulnerable people were lining up to receive meals and care. Bianca felt out of place. Her luxury Uber had stopped in front of the mansion, and even though she was wearing simple clothes, her expensive perfume and her posture revealed that she didn't belong there. She took a deep breath and went inside. "Can I help you?" asked a middle-aged woman with a warm smile, wearing an apron with the project's logo. "I would like to learn about your work." "Maybe volunteer," Bianca replied, improvising an excuse. "Wonderful. We always need more hands. I'm Mrs. Jaina, administrative." "Coordinator, come, I'll show you around." As they walked through the mansion, Jaina explained the various activities carried out: meal distribution, basic medical care, referrals to social services, vocational workshops, and even a small hostel on the second floor. "And who coordinates all this?" Bianca asked, trying to sound casual. "We have a team. Each area has its person in charge. Pascal Henry coordinates external activities and special projects." Bianca's heart raced at the name. "And he's here today?" "Probably not. He spends more time on the streets than in here. He knows every corner of the city center, every person. He has a special gift for connecting with people most of society pretends not to see." Bianca felt a pang of guilt. Here she was, taking part in a bet about someone who dedicated his life to helping others, but it was too late to back out. "When can I meet him?" he insisted. Mrs. Jaina looked at her curiously. "He usually comes by in the late afternoon for the team meeting. If you want to help until then, we have a lot of work in the kitchen." Bianca hesitated. It wasn't in her plans to stay there all day, much less work in the kitchen. But something compelled her to accept that challenge. "Sure, I'll be happy to help," she replied, putting her phone in her bag. The next few hours were surprisingly transformative. Bianca, accustomed to delegating tasks rather than executing them, found herself chopping vegetables, serving soup, and talking to people whose stories she would never have heard in her social circle. There was pain there, certainly, but also a resilience and wisdom that impressed her. "You're new here," a lady commented as Bianca served her a plate of food. "Yes, it's my first day." "Well, know that the first day changes us. The second transforms us, and before you know it, you'll never be the same again," said the woman with an enigmatic smile before walking away. Those words echoed in Bianca's mind all afternoon. When she finally had a moment to rest, she realized that her hands were rough from work, and her makeup had long since faded. Oddly, it didn't bother her as much as she had expected. The clock was almost 6 p.m. when the atmosphere in the mansion changed subtly. Some volunteers looked towards the door, and Bianca instinctively followed their gazes. A man of about 35 had just walked in. He wore worn jeans, a simple flannel shirt, and was unshaven. His dark, slightly long hair framed a face with striking features. He wasn't conventionally handsome by Bianca's standards, but there was something about his presence that immediately caught her attention. "Pascal has arrived," Donna Jaina commented beside him. "Come on, I'll introduce you." Bianca felt unexpectedly nervous. She fixed her disheveled hair and followed Jaina to the newcomer, who was chatting animatedly with a group of people. "Pascal, I want to introduce you to Bianca. It's her first day as a volunteer." Pascal Henri turned, and his eyes, a deep, piercing brown, met Bianca's. For a moment she felt as if he could see right through her intentions, her gamble, all the superficiality that made up her life. It was a disconcerting feeling. "Welcome to Project Avenue," he said in a deep, warm voice, extending his hand. "I hope you had a good first day." "It was different," Bianca replied, feeling Pascal's calloused hand wrap around hers. "I've never done anything like it before." A smile appeared on the corner of his lips. "Is this good or bad?" "Good, I guess. Definitely good." "I'm glad to hear that. New volunteers always bring new perspectives." The conversation was interrupted by a young man who urgently needed to speak to Pascal. He apologized and walked away, leaving Bianca with a strange feeling, as if she had missed an important opportunity. "Is he always like this?" asked Donna Jaina. "Like this? So present. It's like when he talks to you, the rest of the world disappears." Jaina smiled. "That's Pascal. He really cares. It's not an act, it's not a technique. He just sees the real people." The team meeting began soon after. Bianca sat in a corner, watching how Pascal led the discussion. He listened more than he spoke, valued everyone's opinion, and when he spoke, he demonstrated an intelligence and sensitivity that contrasted with his simple appearance. At the end of the meeting, to Bianca's surprise, Pascal approached her. "So will you be back tomorrow?" he asked. I don't know, I have work and—" "I understand. Life out there is demanding," he said without judgment. "But if you could come back even for a few hours, you would be most welcome. People like you make a difference." People like me, Bianca asked, confused. People willing to step out of their comfort zone. It's easy to see that this isn't your usual environment. But you stayed, you worked, you connected. That says a lot about you. Bianca felt her face burn. It was as if he had read her like an open book, but interpreting a better version of herself than she really was. Thank you, was all she could say. We are organizing a cultural intervention in Plaza Esperanza next Saturday. Music, poetry, art produced by the project's beneficiaries. If you want to come, I will, Bianca replied almost automatically. Pascal smiled again, a smile that lit up his eyes. See you Saturday then. On the drive home, Bianca couldn't stop thinking about Pascal Henri. There was something about him that didn't fit the stereotypes. His speech was articulate and polite. His knowledge seemed vast, and his leadership was natural and respectful. How did someone like that end up practically living on the streets? That night, Bianca declined her friend's invitation to dinner at a Michelin-starred restaurant. For the first time in a long time, she preferred to stay home alone. As she took a long shower to wash away the smell of the communal kitchen, she reflected on the day. She had had her cell phone kept ringing. Carolina wanted to know about the mission's progress. Fabian asked if she had located the target. The language her friends were using suddenly seemed cruel and inhumane. I haven't found him yet, he lied in a message to the group. I'll try again on Saturday, at an event in Plaza Esperanza. The answer came immediately. Perfect. We will be there to witness the beginning of the conquest. Bianca felt a knot in her stomach. The thought of her friends watching, judging, turning this into a spectacle, made her deeply uncomfortable. But there was no turning back now. During the week, Bianca found herself strangely distracted at work. During important meetings, her mind wandered to the Avenida project, to the people she had met, to Pascal Henri and his perceptive eyes. She did some research on the project and discovered that it was one of the most effective NGOs in the city, with concrete results in the social reintegration of homeless people. On Friday, the day before the event at Plaza Esperanza, Bianca received an unexpected call. "Miss Tavares?" asked an unfamiliar voice. "Yes. Who's speaking?" "This is Vicente Moreau. I'm Gustavo's father, who you met at Fabian Müller's party." Bianca frowned in confusion. "Yes, we have met. How can I help?" "You, Mr. Moreau? I'd like to talk in person. It's about a delicate matter. Could you meet me for coffee this afternoon?" Intrigued, Bianca accepted the invitation. A few hours later, she was sitting in an elegant café in Jardim Europa, face-to-face with Vicente Moreau, a gentleman of approximately 70 years old, impeccably dressed and with a posture that exuded authority. "Thank you for coming, Miss Tavares," he began after the initial greetings. "I'll get straight to the point. I'm aware of the bet involving Pascal Henri." Bianca paled. "How? My son Gustavo told me. He was quite bothered by the situation." "I see," Bianca murmured, embarrassed. "Look, I know it sounds terrible, and it probably is, but—" Vicente held up his hand, gently interrupting her. "I'm not here to judge you. In fact, I have a proposal to make." "A proposal?" Bianca leaned forward slightly, intrigued. Vicente took a sip of his coffee before continuing. "I've known Pascal Henri for many years, longer than anyone would imagine." Bianca's confusion grew. "I don't understand. Do you know the coordinator of the Avenida project?" "Not only do I know," Vicente replied with an enigmatic smile, "but I have reason to be concerned about his well-being, and that is why this bet particularly interests me." Bianca felt her face burn with embarrassment. "Mr. Moreau, I really didn't mean to—" "Please," he interrupted again. "As I said, I'm not here for judgments. In fact, I want you to continue with the bet." "What?" Now Bianca was completely confused. "Yes, but on one condition. I want you to get genuinely close to him, get to know him for real without any pretense, and keep me informed about how he is doing." "That seems unstrange. Why do you care so much?" Vicente looked out the window of the cafe for a few moments, as if organizing his thoughts. "Let's just say I owe his family a debt. Pascal has been through difficult times and has chosen a peculiar path. I respect his decision, but I worry. Something about that explanation didn't seem complete, but Bianca decided not to press. And what do I get out of it? A smile spread across the man's face. Straightforward, as I'm told. I like that. In return, I offer something your group of friends can't give you, the truth about Pascal Henry. After 3 meetings with him, come find me. I'll share information that will completely change your perspective. Why don't you tell me now, Bianca challenged, because I want you to form your own impressions first. No preconceptions, no prior information, just you and him in a genuine encounter. Bianca thought for a moment. The proposal was as mysterious as it was tempting. Okay, I accept. Excellent, Vicente seemed pleased. Just one recommendation. Pascal has an infallible radar for falsehood. If you really want to get to know him, you'll have to let down your defenses. Those words echoed in Bianca's mind as she prepared for the event at Plaza Esperanza on Saturday. She opted for a simple but authentic look. Jeans, a white blouse and a light jacket. No impossible heels or exaggerated makeup. She wanted to feel comfortable, authentic. When he arrived at the square, he found a surprising scene. A small stage had been set up, chairs arranged in a semicircle, and people from different social backgrounds were chatting animatedly. Street artists, some clearly in vulnerable situations, were preparing to perform. There was music, colors, life. You came, Pascal's voice surprised her from behind. Bianca turned and smiled. I promised I would come. And he keeps his promises, that's good to know. He wore a simple blue shirt and jeans. His hair was tied back in a casual bun, and his beard looked lightly trimmed. Something about his presence was magnetic. Can I help you with anything? Bianca offered. Actually, yes, we're having a problem organizing the presentations. You have experience with events, right? Bianca looked at him in surprise. How do you know that? Pascal smiled. Google, Bianca Tavares, marketing executive. At Impacto Comunicação. Specialist in branding strategies and corporate event organization. You researched me, she said, not knowing whether to be flattered or worried. Let's just say I was curious about the executive who decided to spend an entire day serving soup at Project Avenida. There was something challenging in his tone, as if he suspected her intentions, but didn't want to confront her directly. Bianca felt her stomach sink. Well, then you know you can count on me to organize the presentations, he replied, trying to maintain his composure. The next few hours were intense. Bianca threw herself into her work, coordinating presentations, solving technical problems, making sure everything flowed smoothly. This was her element, organization and execution, but in a completely different context than usual. There were no millionaire clients to impress, just ordinary people sharing their stories through art. During a break, he noticed a family group approaching. His heart raced as he recognized Carolina, Fabian, and other friends of the Untouchables, all of whom seemed out of place in that popular environment. My dear. What an interesting place, Carolina exclaimed, examining her surroundings with a forced smile. What are you guys doing here? Bianca asked, trying to hide her discomfort. We came to honor your new project, Fabian replied with a mischievous smile, and, of course, to meet the famous Pascal Henry. He's busy right now, Bianca tried to distract them. You'd better go. No way, Carolina insisted. We came all this way. We want to see how this fascinating story unfolds. At that moment, Pascal approached. Bianca, we need help with... Oh, sorry, I didn't realize you were with friends. Bianca felt as if she were between two worlds that should never meet. Pascal, these are acquaintances of mine. Everyone, this is Pascal Henry, coordinator of the Avenida project. Pascal greeted everyone politely, but his eyes showed keen perception. He noticed the exchanged glances, the restrained smiles, the tension in the air. Did you come for the presentations? He asked. Actually, we came to see Bianca in action, Fabian replied. She told us about her work here and we were curious. Pascal gave Bianca a questioning look and she felt her face burn. Well, welcome, he said finally. Introductions. Begin in 15 minutes. If you'll excuse me, we still have a few details to work out. As he walked away with Bianca, Pascal commented in a low voice, "Interesting friends you have." "They're not exactly my friends," she replied without thinking. "No, they seemed quite familiar." "It is complicated." Pascal stopped and stared at her. "Bianca, I don't know what your game is, but I feel like there's something you're not telling." Her heart raced. "There's no game, I just want to help." "Really?" he challenged her. "Because your presence here with those friends watching feels orchestrated." Bianca felt exposed, vulnerable. "It's not what you think." "And what am I thinking?" She had no answer, or rather she did, but she couldn't share it. "Look," Pascal softened his tone, "I don't know what your motives are, and honestly it doesn't matter. If you're here to help, great. If you have other interests, that's your problem. Just don't harm the project or the people who depend on it." Those words hit Bianca like a punch. It was the first time someone had confronted her like that, without beating around the bush, without social games. "I won't hurt anyone," he promised, with a sincerity that surprised her. The event continued. The performances were simple but full of emotion and authenticity. Homeless people reciting poetry about their experiences, classically trained musicians who had lost everything playing donated instruments, former drug addicts telling their stories of recovery through art. Bianca watched her friends watching with expressions that varied between boredom, discomfort, and condescension. She felt ashamed, not of them, but of herself, for being part of that circle. At one point, Pascal took the stage. Without making any grand announcements, he picked up a guitar and began to play. His deep, melodic voice filled the square with a song about second chances and new beginnings. There was an intensity to his performance that captured everyone's attention, including the untouchables, who stopped whispering to watch him. When he finished, to warm applause, his eyes met Bianca's in the crowd. There was something in that look, a challenge, an invitation, an unspoken question. After the event, while helping to dismantle the structures, Bianca noticed that her friends had left without saying goodbye. Pascal approached her, offering her a bottle of water. "Your friends didn't like it very much, apparently," he commented. "Like I said, they're not exactly my friends." "Then why do you keep them around?" The question was simple, yet profound. Bianca took a sip of water, buying time to think. "Habit, perhaps. They are part of my world, and what world is this? A superficial, predictable, safe world," he replied with an honesty that surprised her. Pascal studied her for a moment, as if reassessing who she was. "Interesting. Most people don't admit that." "I'm trying to be more authentic." A smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "It's working." When the square was finally organized and the team began to disperse, Pascal approached Bianca again. "A few of us are going to grab a bite to eat at a nearby diner. Nothing fancy, just honest food and good conversation. Want to come?" Bianca thought about her usual Saturday night commitment. Dinner at a Michelin-starred restaurant, followed by a night out at an exclusive club. The prospect of trading that for a simple cafe with people she barely knew must have seemed like an absurd decline. "I'd love to," she replied, surprising herself once again. The diner was exactly as Pascal had described, simple, welcoming, and with traditional Brazilian food. Bianca found herself sitting between Dona Gina and a young man named Luis, who taught music to children at the project. Pascal sat across from her, participating in the conversation, but also watching her, curiously. "So, Bianca, what did you think of our event?" Gina asked. "It was transformative," he replied honestly. "I've never seen anything like it." "Pascal has that effect on things," Louis commented. "He turns the ordinary into the extraordinary." Pascal shook his head, visibly uncomfortable, with the compliment. "It's the collective that makes the magic happen. I just help organize it." "Ever humble," Gina laughed. "Bianca, this man came out of nowhere a year ago, revolutionized our project, and refuses to take credit for it." "Where did you come from, Pascal?" Bianca asked, taking advantage of the opportunity. A momentary silence fell over the table. Pascal took a sip of his water before answering. from nowhere and from everywhere. I have lived many lives before. This one. That's not an answer, she teased. No, it's not, he agreed with an enigmatic smile. Let's just say I've had a privileged life, made some questionable decisions, lost a lot of what I valued, and in the process, discovered what really matters. There was something about her story that resonated with Bianca, not the details, which remained hazy, but the essence of someone searching for meaning beyond appearances. The night progressed with deep conversations and genuine laughter. Bianca didn't check her cell phone once. She didn't worry about who might be watching her in that simple environment. She didn't think about what she should be doing according to the standards of her social circle. In the following weeks, Bianca found herself torn between two completely different worlds. During the day, she continued to be the relentless executive at Impacto Comunicação, closing million-dollar contracts and maintaining her impeccable image in the corporate environment. But whenever possible, she escaped to Projeto Avenida, where she gradually became part of the team. Her closeness with Pascal Henry grew with each meeting. He invited her to participate in street actions, distributing food and blankets to vulnerable people. Together, they walked through alleys and overpasses in the city that Bianca had never really seen. "How do you do it?" she asked one night as they walked back to the project after a long day of work. "Get what?" Pascal asked. "Keep hope. See so much misery, so much injustice, and still believe that you can make a difference." Pascal stopped walking and looked at her. The streetlight partially illuminated her face, creating shadows that accentuated her strong features. "It's not about making all the difference, Bianca. It's about making some difference, here now for that specific person who needs it. The rest is up to the universe." There was a wisdom in his words that contrasted with his simple appearance. Bianca felt increasingly intrigued by this man who seemed to carry so many mysteries. In her luxurious apartment, the messages from the untouchables piled up without a response. "How is the beggar's conquest going?" Carolina asked. "Have you managed to make him fall in love yet, or do we need to extend the deadline?" Fabian teased. Bianca ignored the messages, feeling a growing repulsion for this cruel game she herself had agreed to participate in. At the same time, she remembered her agreement with Vincent Moreau. After 3 significant meetings with Pascal, she should seek him out to find out the truth. The next morning, Bianca woke up determined. She called Vicente and arranged a lunch at a discreet restaurant in the Paraíso neighborhood. "So, 3 meetings have passed," Vicente commented as they sat down at the table. "What is your impression of Pascal Henry?" Bianca thought for a moment. "He's disconcerting. He has knowledge, education, and charisma that don't match his apparent social status. It's as if he's playing a role, but at the same time there's an authenticity about him that's undeniable." Vicente smiled, satisfied. "Excellent observation. And now are you ready for the truth?" "I am." The gentleman sat back in his chair, took a sip of water and began, "Pascal Henri Moreau is my nephew." Bianca's eyes widened. "Your nephew? So he's Gustavo's cousin." "Exactly, son of my younger brother who passed away 5 years ago. Pascal inherited a considerable fortune, Moreau Investimentos, one of the largest brokerage firms in the country." "But how? Why does he live like that?" After his father's departure, Pascal went through a deep existential crisis. He questioned the meaning of wealth, of privilege. He had always been different, idealistic, sensitive. He graduated in economics and did a master's in social development at the London School of Economics. "That explains a lot," Bianca murmured, recalling Pascal's articulate conversations and diverse knowledge. 2 years ago, he made a radical decision. He left the company, delegated management to trusted executives, and began what he calls social immersion. Initially, it was supposed to be a 3-month experiment, living like an ordinary person without privileges, to truly understand Brazilian reality. And it became a year, Bianca added. Yes, he found purpose in the Avenida project. His fortune remains intact, in fact, growing thanks to well-structured investments, but he chose to live simply, dedicating himself to social causes. Bianca tried to process all that information. And why are you telling me this? Vicente sighed deeply. Because Pascal is trapped in his own experience. The family is worried. He needs to come back, take his place, use his resources and influence more strategically. The work he does is admirable, but with his position, he could impact thousands, not just dozens. And what do I have to do with it? You intrigue him, Bianca, I can tell from Gustavo's reports. Pascal notices your duality, the marketing executive who serves soup to the needy. You represent the bridge between the two worlds. Bianca felt the weight of that revelation. Do you want me to convince him to come back? I want to show him that it is possible to balance privilege and purpose, that one does not exclude the other. Is that why you supported the bet? She asked, beginning to understand. Vicente had the decency to look slightly embarrassed. I didn't support the bet itself, which I consider to be in poor taste, but I saw an opportunity in it. Pascal needs to reconnect with the world he came from, even if it's to reject it consciously, not out of trauma or revolt. Bianca was silent, taking it all in. Finally, she asked, "What now? Should I tell him that I know the truth?" "No," Vicente replied quickly. "He needs to reveal this on his own when he feels confident. If I tell him I know, he'll shut down completely." "That sounds like manipulation," Bianca observed. "Call it what you will. I prefer to think of it as a family intervention. Pascal is getting lost in his own narrative. He needs someone to challenge him, to make him question his choices." Bianca left the restaurant with her mind in turmoil. The revelation about Pascal explained a lot, but it also complicated everything. How could she continue to get closer to him, knowing that his life was a construction, just as her approach also had hidden motivations? They were two actors in a play, each playing a role, without realizing that the other was also acting. The next day at work, Bianca couldn't concentrate. Her boss noticed her distraction during an important meeting. "Bianca, are you okay? You haven't seemed like yourself lately." "I'm fine," she lied, "just reconsidering some priorities." "Well, I hope these reconsiderations don't affect your performance. Banco Atlantico's campaign cannot fail." The words sounded hollow to Bianca. An advertising campaign for a bank that charged exorbitant interest rates to people in need. Was this really what she wanted to do with her life? Promote consumption, fuel inequality? As he left the agency at the end of the day, he found a familiar figure waiting on the sidewalk. Pascal was leaning against a lamppost watching the movement. "What are you doing here?" she asked, surprised and nervous after Vicente's revelations. "I was just passing by and thought I'd invite you for coffee," he replied matter-of-factly. "But if you're busy—" "No, I'm not," he replied quickly, ignoring the 3 meetings he had scheduled for the evening. "I'd love to grab a coffee." They walked to a simple coffee shop, nothing like the fancy establishments Bianca frequented. Pascal ordered a black coffee, she a cappuccino. "So this is your world," he commented, looking out the window at the mirrored agency building. "A part of him," Bianca replied. "And do you like what you do?" The question was simple, but it caught Bianca off guard. I used to like it. Now I don't know anymore." "What changed?" I guess. Or maybe it's always been that way, and I'm just realizing it now." Pascal watched her with that penetrating gaze that seemed to see beyond appearances. "Do you know what I find fascinating about you, Bianca? Your honesty when you least expect it to be honest." She felt her face burn. If he knew how dishonest she was being at that moment. "I have a proposal," Pascal said suddenly. "We're organizing a weekend retreat for the project team, a place on the outskirts of the city, nothing fancy, but a place to reconnect with nature and rethink our strategies. I'd like you to come." "Me? But I'm not part of the permanent team." "You've become more of a part of it than you realize," he replied with a smile. "Plus, your experience in marketing and events would be valuable as we rethink our communication with donors and partners." Bianca hesitated. A whole weekend with Pascal and the project team would mean immersing herself even further into that world, further away from her own. At the same time, it was an opportunity to better understand this man, who she now knew lived a double life, just as much as she did. "I accept," he finally replied. On Friday, Bianca packed a small suitcase with simple, practical clothes. No heels, designer dresses, or elaborate makeup. As she was zipping up her bag, her cell phone rang. It was Carolina. "Missing. We're worried about you. Fabian is organizing a yacht party tomorrow. Everyone will be there." "I won't be able to go," Bianca replied curtly. "What do you mean? It's the event of the year. What could be more important?" Bianca took a deep breath. "I have other commitments, Carol." "With the homeless guy from the project?" "My God, B. You're taking this bet too far. It was supposed to be fun, not for you to become a social worker." "It's not about the bet," Bianca replied, feeling her anger rise. "And he has a name, Pascal Henry." "Whatever. Look, you've already proven your point. Fabian is willing to pay the bet. We can end this and you can go back to your normal life." "What? If I don't want to go back?" The silence on the other end of the line was telling. "Bianca Tavares, you are unrecognizable. What happened to you?" "I'm finding myself, Carol, for the first time in a long time." She hung up the phone before her. Friend could respond. She felt a strange sense of liberation, as if a weight had been lifted that she hadn't even known she was carrying. On Saturday morning, she met the Avenida Project group at the agreed meeting point. 2 modest cars were waiting to take them to the farm. Pascal greeted her with a warm smile. "Ready for a weekend of work and reflection?" he asked. "More than you know," she replied, returning the smile. The trip lasted about 2 hours. Bianca found herself in the back seat of one of the cars between Donna Gina and a young volunteer named Isabella. Pascal drove, occasionally joining in the lively conversation that flowed naturally. The place was simple but cozy. A main house with shared rooms, an outdoor area with a barbecue, and lots of greenery around. Bianca would stay in the female room with Jaina, Isabella, and 2 other volunteers. The weekend schedule included bonding activities, strategic planning sessions, and leisure time. That afternoon, after everyone had settled in, Pascal gathered the group under a large tree for the first activity. "Before we can think about the future of the project, we need to reflect on our own paths," he explained. "Why are we here? What drives us? What do we hope to transform, in the world and in ourselves?" The question echoed deeply within Bianca. What was moving her now? It was no longer the ridiculous bet, nor even the mission given by Vicente. It was something deeper, more personal. One by one, the participants shared their stories and motivations. When it was her turn, Bianca felt all eyes on her, especially Pascal's. "I came here by chance," he began honestly. "Or at least I thought it was chance. Now I realize that perhaps it was something more, a need to find meaning beyond the appearances I had always cultivated." The silence that followed Bianca's words was charged with emotion. Some members of the group nodded in understanding. Others looked down at the ground, reflecting on their own journeys. Pascal, however, kept his eyes fixed on her, as if trying to see beyond the words. "Thank you for your honesty, Bianca," he said finally. "The search for meaning is perhaps the most important journey we can undertake." As the afternoon progressed, the group split into teams to discuss different aspects of the project. Bianca was responsible, along with Isabella and a young man named Rodrigo, for developing communication strategies to attract new partners and donors. "The problem is that we use very technical language," explained Rodrigo, a former college professor who had lost everything after a complicated divorce. "We talk about statistics, needs, but we don't connect emotionally." "We need to tell stories," Bianca agreed, stepping into her professional element. "Not pity stories or sensationalist stories, but authentic narratives of transformation." They worked tirelessly for hours, developing a comprehensive plan that Bianca knew could rival any strategy her agency could produce. The difference was the purpose. It wasn't about selling a product. It was about mobilizing people for a genuine cause. As the sun began to set, Pascal announced a dinner break. Outside, a large table was set up, and everyone contributed in some way to the meal. Bianca, who had never cooked beyond the basics to survive, found herself chopping vegetables and learning how to prepare a salad under Donna Gina's patient guidance. Dinner was served outdoors, under a starry sky that would never have been visible in Saint Pascal due to light pollution. The simple food, rice, beans, grilled vegetables, and a roast beef prepared by Rodrigo, had a flavor that no Michelin-starred restaurant had ever given Bianca. Conversations flowed naturally, without the superficiality or hidden competitiveness that characterized dinners with the untouchables. Here people talked about dreams, fears, hopes, not material acquisitions or social status. After dinner, while some gathered around a small fire to sing and talk, Bianca found a moment of solitude, sitting on a secluded wooden bench, contemplating the sky. "Have you signed up yet? Do it now and tell us which city you're following us from. Can I join you?" Pascal's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Sure," she replied, moving slightly to make room. He sat down beside her, offering her a steaming cup. "Chamomile tea, I thought you might need some." "How did you know?" "Your eyes, they seem restless today." Bianca accepted the cup, allowing the heat to warm her hands. "I'm going through a moment of re-evaluation, I guess." "On?" "Everything. My career, my friendships, my choices." She hesitated before continuing. "Meeting you in the Avenue project has messed up everything I thought I knew about success and happiness." Pascal remained silent for a few moments, as if carefully choosing his next words. Sometimes we need our world to be messed up in order to see what really matters. "What was it like for you?" Bianca asked, taking advantage of the opening. "What brought you to the project?" Pascal's expression became more serious, more distant. A loss, an awakening, the realization that all the wealth in the world means nothing unless it is shared. "Did you lose someone?" she insisted gently. Pascal looked at the horizon. "My father. Not because of his death, but because of the life he chose to live. He devoted himself so much to accumulating wealth that he forgot to live. When he left a material fortune and a spiritual poverty that frightened me." Bianca felt a tightness in her chest. Vicente had mentioned his brother's death, but not the emotional details that Pascal now revealed. "I'm sorry," she said sincerely. "It was 5 years ago. I was different then. I worked in the financial market. I lived for the numbers, for the exponential growth of something that was already more than enough." He paused, taking a sip of his own tea before continuing. "After his departure, I received an inheritance that suffocated me. Not just money, but expectations, responsibilities, a legacy based on values that I was beginning to question." "So you decided to abandon everything?" Bianca asked, knowing part of the answer but eager to hear his version. "I didn't give up," Pascal corrected. "I recalibrated. I decided I needed to really understand the world before I could decide what my role in it would be." "And he began to live as if he had nothing." Pascal looked at her intently. "I started living as if all that mattered were human connections, not material possessions. It's different." Bianca felt the weight of Pascal's partial revelation. He was sharing a profound truth but still keeping his true identity hidden. "And your family? What did they think of it?" A sad smile appeared on his face. "They think I'm crazy, that it's a phase. One uncle in particular is convinced that I need to be saved from myself." "And do you need to?" she teased gently. "Of what? Of a life of purpose, of genuine connections, of working directly to improve people's lives?" Pascal shook his head. "Don't mistake simplicity for neediness, Bianca. I choose to live this way." The silence that followed was comfortable, contemplative. The stars shone brightly above them, and the distant sound of conversation and laughter around the campfire created an almost magical atmosphere. "Can I confess something to you?" Bianca finally asked. "Of course. In the beginning, when I met you, I had different motivations." Pascal smiled. "You mean the bet with your friends to win me over?" Bianca's eyes widened in shock. How do you know that?" "Saint Pascal is a big city, but the social circles are smaller than they seem. Your friend Fabian has a loose tongue after a few shots of whiskey. He told someone who eventually got to me." Bianca felt her face burn with shame. She wanted the ground to open up and swallow her right then. Pascal, I don't know what to say. It was horrible, unforgivable. It was, he agreed with surprising calm. But people make questionable choices every day. What matters is what they do next. Did you know from the beginning? Why did you allow me to get close? Curiosity, perhaps. I wanted to understand what would lead someone like you to participate in something like this. And then over time I realized that there was more to you than that ridiculous bet. I feel so ashamed, Bianca confessed, tears forming in her eyes. What I started for such lowly reasons has turned into something meaningful to me. Pascal gently touched her hand. This is how we grow, Bianca, through mistakes, regrets, and redemptions. I don't deserve your understanding. It's not about deserving, it's about evolving. Pascal paused before continuing. Besides, I haven't been completely honest with you either. Bianca wiped away a tear, looking at him puzzled. What do you mean? Pascal took a deep breath as if making an important decision. My full name is Pascal-Henri Moreau. I am the nephew of Vincent Moreau and cousin of Gustavo, whom you met at Fabian's party. Even though she already knew the truth, hearing the confession directly from him had an impact on Bianca. You have a considerable fortune? Yes, Moreau Investimentos has been mine since my father left. I have delegated management to trusted executives, but I remain the owner and main shareholder. Why are you telling me this now? Pascal looked straight into her eyes. Because I feel like we're at a turning point, Bianca. You've confessed your truth, and you deserve to hear mine. What started as a strange game between us has turned into something I can't define, but I don't want to lose. Bianca felt her heart race. Me neither. So let's start over. No stakes, no secrets. Just two human beings trying to find meaning in a complicated world. He extended his hand, as if greeting her for the first time. Hello, I'm Pascal-Henri Moreau, a millionaire in an existential crisis trying to make a difference. Bianca laughed, through her tears, squeezing his hand. Bianca Tavares, marketing executive, questioning all her life choices. In that moment, under the stars, something new began between them. It wasn't just attraction nor just connection. It was a mutual understanding that transcended social backgrounds and past mistakes. What happens now? She asked. I don't know, Pascal replied honestly, but for the first time in a long time, I'm eager to find out. They sat side by side, talking late into the night. Pascal shared more details about his journey, about how he had structured his double life, maintaining a small apartment in the city center where he stored documents and essential items while living mostly on the project premises. Bianca spoke about her privileged childhood, the constant pressure to be perfect, and how her professional success had become a gilded prison. As the early morning chill intensified, they returned to the main house where most of the others had already retired. At the door to the girls' dormitory, Pascal gently held Bianca's hand. Thank you for listening, for understanding. Thank you for giving me a second chance, she replied. The impulse was mutual and natural. Their lips met in a soft, shy kiss, but full of possibilities. When they separated, they were both smiling. Good evening, Bianca. Good evening, Pascal. The next morning, the group gathered for a communal breakfast. Bianca noticed the curious glances from Donna, Jaina as she noticed the closeness between her and Pascal, but there was no judgment there, only a kind of maternal satisfaction. The day's activities went as planned, with productive discussions about the future of the project. Bianca actively contributed, using her professional experience to suggest strategies that could expand the scope and impact of the work. During a break, Pascal invited her to take a walk to a small lake nearby. I've been thinking, he said as they walked side by side down a wooded trail, about the future. What a coincidence, me too, she replied with a smile. And did you come to any conclusion? Bianca stopped walking, turning to face him. Yes, I can't live divided between two worlds anymore. I need to integrate what I learned here with who I already am. Pascal nodded, encouraging her to continue. I'm thinking about creating a social responsibility division at the agency. using my influence to direct resources and talents to causes that really matter, like the Avenida project. That sounds like an excellent start, Pascal approved. And you, she asked, you can't live divided forever either. Pascal looked at the horizon, thoughtful. You're right. My uncle Vicente is always saying that. He cares about you. Know that, and maybe he's right on some points. I can do more with the resources I have than just live a double life. They reached the lake, a calm body of water surrounded by vegetation. Pascal picked up a stone and threw it, creating ripples on the clear surface. I'm thinking about transforming the Avenida project into a broader foundation, he revealed. Using my resources to expand the work, creating branches in other regions of the city, perhaps in other states. That would be amazing, Bianca agreed enthusiastically. But to do that, he continued, I will need to publicly reassert my identity. Face the press, family expectations, public scrutiny. Are you afraid of that? Pascal thought for a moment. It's not fear. It's fear of losing the authenticity I found in living simply, of being swallowed up again by the world of appearances. It doesn't have to be this way, Bianca argued. You can set your own terms, stand by your values. Maybe I need someone to remind me of that constantly, he suggested, looking at her intently. Bianca felt her heart race again. Are you inviting me to something, Pascal Henri Moreau? I'm inviting you on a journey, he replied, stepping closer. I don't know exactly where it will take us, but I know I want you to be by my side as we discover it. The following weeks were full of intense transformations for Bianca and Pascal. Back in Saint Pascal, they both began to reorganize their lives, integrating the different facets of their existence. Bianca scheduled a meeting with Ricardo Mendes, CEO of Impacto Comunicação. She needed to share her new ideas and see if there would be room for them at the agency. A social responsibility division? Ricardo asked, raising his eyebrows as he leaned back in his leather chair. Bianca, we're an advertising agency, not an NGO. Precisely because we are an agency, we have the power to influence narratives, she argued with the same persuasiveness she used to win clients. Companies are increasingly concerned about their social impact. We can help them create authentic strategies, not just marketing actions disguised as solidarity. Ricardo watched her curiously. You've changed. I've evolved, Bianca corrected, and I believe the agency can evolve too. After an hour of detailed presentation, including financial projections and potential clients interested in a more authentic social positioning, Ricardo relented. 3 months, he ordered. You have 3 months to prove that this can be profitable. If it doesn't work, we go back to the traditional model. That's all I need, Bianca assured confidently. Meanwhile, Pascal was facing his own challenges. He met with Vicente and other family members to publicly announce his decision to resume the presidency of Moreau Investimentos, but with a new approach. I plan to direct 30% of the annual profits to a new foundation, he explained over lunch at his uncle's mansion. The Moreau Foundation for Social Development will be an expansion of the Avenida project, focusing on housing, education, and entrepreneurship for vulnerable populations. 30%, asked a cousin, visibly uncomfortable. That will significantly impact shareholder dividends. The major shareholders are all from this family, Pascal replied calmly, and I believe that we all have more than enough to live comfortably for the next 3 centuries. Vicente watched the scene with a small smile. His plan had worked better than he had expected. Pascal was not only returning, but bringing with him a renewed vision. I fully support Pascal's decision, Vicente declared, silencing the remaining objections. In fact, I intend to contribute personally to the foundation, in addition to my participation as a shareholder. With his uncle's support, Pascal began to structure his transition. He hired a team of lawyers and consultants to formalize the creation of the foundation. In the meantime, he continued his work on the Avenida project, now with Bianca often by his side. Their relationship flourished, balancing 2 worlds that were beginning to collide. Sometimes they dined in fancy restaurants, other times they shared lunchboxes with homeless people. They attended shows at the municipal theatre and participated in cultural gatherings in the outskirts of the city. Each experience was an opportunity for integration and learning. One night, after a particularly exhausting day of work at the project headquarters, Pascal surprised Bianca with an invitation. "I'd like to take you somewhere special tomorrow," he said as he walked her to her car. "What place?" she asked, intrigued. "My home, my real home." Bianca felt the weight of that invitation. Until then, they had met in the small apartment that Pascal kept downtown, in the project or in her house. Visiting Pascal-Henri Moreau's main residence represented a new level of intimacy. "I would be honored," she replied with a smile. The following night, Pascal picked her up in a discreet but visibly luxurious car, one of the few indications of his true financial status that he allowed. It was not an ostentatious mansion, as Bianca expected, but a modernist house integrated into the abundant vegetation of the land. "It's not what I imagined," she commented as they entered the property. "My father liked to be ostentatious. When I took over the property, I made some changes," Pascal explained. "I wanted a place that represented my values: sophisticated simplicity, integration with nature, functionality." The house was impressive in its understated elegance. Large windows framed views of the garden, minimalist designer furniture filled the spaces with purpose, and an impressive collection of contemporary Brazilian art adorned the walls. "It's beautiful," Bianca admired. "And it's practically never used," Pascal commented with a hint of irony. "Since I began my social experiment, I've only come here to check that everything is in order." Helena, the housekeeper, takes care of everything with admirable efficiency. As if summoned by the mention, a middle-aged lady appeared to welcome them with a warm smile. "Finally, you've brought someone to see your den, Mr. Pascal," she commented, with the familiarity of someone who had watched the boy grow up. "Helena, this is Bianca," Pascal introduced, "a very special person in my life." "It's a pleasure to finally meet you," Helena replied. "Mr. Pascal has mentioned you a few times." After a brief conversation, Helena left to finish the dinner she had prepared, leaving Bianca and Pascal alone in the living room. "So you're talking about me?" Bianca teased. "Constantly," Pascal admitted, leaning in for a soft kiss. "Helena is practically family. She's been with us since I was a child." "Does she know about your double life?" "She knows enough. She is discreet and loyal." Dinner was served on the veranda, overlooking the floodlit pool and meticulously manicured garden. The food, simple but impeccably prepared, was accompanied by a wine that Pascal selected from his private cellar. "That will all change soon," he commented, looking around, "when I officially announce my return." "Are you ready?" Bianca asked. "Honestly? Not completely. There will be media interest, speculation, judgments. The story of the heir who lived homeless for a year is too sensational to ignore." "We can manage this," Bianca assured, slipping into her professional mode. "Create a controlled narrative. Focus on the purpose of the foundation rather than the curious details of your experience." Pascal smiled in admiration. "I'm beginning to understand why you're so successful at your job." After dinner, they walked through the garden, which was illuminated by strategically placed lights. Pascal told stories of his childhood in that house, of the times with his father, the good and the difficult. He wasn't a bad man, Pascal reflected. He just lost his way somewhere along the way, confused hoarding with living. "And you're afraid to do the same," Bianca concluded, not as a question but as an observation. "I do. Sometimes I wonder if I'll be strong enough to resist the gravitational pull of privilege and power." Bianca paused, holding out her hands. "You're not alone on this journey, and it's not just about resisting, it's about transforming, using these resources as tools, not as definers of who you are." Pascal watched her intently, touched by her words. "How did someone who participated in a ridiculous bet become my moral compass?" he asked with a tender smile. "In the Iggy. Same way that a millionaire pretending to be poor became my inspiration for authenticity," she replied, returning the smile. "Life is ironic." That night, Bianca stayed at Pascal's house for the first time. His master suite, Overlooking the garden was a sanctuary of tranquility in the middle of bustling San Pascal. They fell asleep in each other's arms, as if their souls had finally found peace after so much internal division. The next morning, while they were having coffee on the balcony, Pascal made an unexpected proposal. "What if we announce everything together?" he suggested. "My return to the presidency of Moreau Investimentos, the creation of the foundation, and the new social responsibility division of your agency as the first strategic partner." Bianca considered the idea, analyzing angles and possibilities like the strategist she was. It would be powerful, a complete story of personal and social transformation. Precisely. Not just the story of the eccentric heir, but a broader narrative about rethinking the role of privilege and resources in society. Pascal's enthusiasm was contagious, and Bianca found herself involved in planning the big announcement. Together, they outlined strategies, defined key messages, and discussed potential partners. Over the next few weeks, they worked tirelessly on the details. Bianca mobilized her team at the agency to develop the Moreau Foundation's visual identity and the entire communication strategy for the launch. Pascal met with lawyers, accountants, and consultants to legally structure the foundation and prepare for the transition within the company. The Avenida project would continue to be the heart of the new foundation, but now with significantly greater resources and a structure that would allow expansion to other regions of the city and eventually the country. A month after that night at Pascal's house, everything was ready for the big announcement. They chose the Avenida project as the venue, transformed for the occasion with a professional sound and lighting structure, but maintaining its welcoming essence. They invited journalists, business people, potential partners, and most importantly, the people served by the project and the volunteers who kept it running for so long. The day before the event, Bianca received an unexpected message from Carolina. "I heard about your involvement with Pascal-Henri Moreau. Why didn't you tell us who he really was? I thought we were friends." The message hurt more than Bianca expected. Despite having distanced herself from the untouchables in recent weeks, part of her still cared about those long-standing friendships. "I didn't tell him because I didn't even know at first," he answered honestly. "And then, when I found out, I realized that wasn't the most important thing about him." Carolina's response was quick. "Fabian is furious. He thinks you planned all this to get close to a millionaire. The irony is that we thought he was a beggar. And in the end, he's richer than all of us put together." Bianca felt a pang of sadness. "I'm sorry you think that. The truth is, we were both hiding who we really were, and it was only when we dropped our masks that we could truly find each other." "That sounds like a soap opera dialogue," Carolina replied, but added, "Still, we miss you. The group isn't the same without you." It was a small opening, an acknowledgement that touched Bianca. "You are invited to tomorrow's event. It would mean a lot to me to have you there, not as the untouchables, but as friends who, despite their differences, can celebrate a new beginning." There was no immediate response, leaving Bianca uncertain whether her invitation would be accepted. That evening, as she finalized the details of the event with Pascal at the Avenida project, she shared her concerns. "Do you think I did well to invite them?" he asked. "You are extending a hand, offering them the same opportunity for transformation that we had," Pascal replied. "What they do with it is their choice." Bianca nodded, comforted. "It's funny how we started with lies and games, and now here we are, building something based on truth and purpose." Pascal smiled, hugging her. "Maybe we need the lies to find our truths." That night, lying in bed in the small apartment Pascal kept near the project, they made plans for the future, not just for the next day's event, but for their lives. They talked about the possibility of living together, about trips they would take to learn about social projects in other countries, about how they would balance their renewed careers with their blossoming relationship. "Do you know what impresses me most about you?" Pascal asked, stroking Bianca's hair as she rested her head on his chest. "What?" "Its capacity for transformation, for reinvention without losing its essence." Bianca smiled. "I think I learned that from you." "No," he disagreed gently. You've always had it inside you. I just helped it awaken. The next morning, they woke up early, energized by the adrenaline of the big day. The Avenida project was already in motion when they arrived, with technical teams finalizing adjustments and volunteers organizing the space. Mrs. Jaina welcomed them with warm hugs. Just look at you two. Who would have thought, huh? From the first day of serving soup to today, what a journey. A journey that is just beginning, Bianca replied, exchanging a knowing look with Pascal. The central courtyard of the Avenida project was unrecognizable. The space that normally served simple meals to homeless people had been transformed into an elegant but welcoming space. Chairs arranged in a semicircle faced a small stage where a discreet banner announced Fundação Moreau, Transformando Realidades. Journalists arrived in groups, curious about the mysterious event called by an heir who had disappeared from the social radar more than a year ago. Executives from large companies, potential partners of the foundation, chatted in small groups, while people assisted by the project circulated naturally, integrated into the environment. Bianca, wearing a simple but elegant blue dress, oversaw the final details with the precision of a seasoned marketing executive. Pascal, for his part, wore a well-cut suit, a concession to the formality of the moment, but sans tie, retaining something of his hard-earned simplicity. Nervous? Bianca asked, approaching him minutes before the official start. A little, Pascal admitted, not because of the announcement itself, but because of what it represents. It's a point of no return. The best moments in life usually are, she replied, gently adjusting the lapel of his suit. At that moment, a buzz at the entrance caught both of their attention. Fabian, Carolina, and other members of the Untouchables entered the space, visibly uncomfortable but present. Bianca felt a wave of emotion when she saw them there. They came, he murmured. Go talk to them, Pascal encouraged. I have some people to greet as well. Bianca crossed the courtyard towards her old friends, uncertain about the reception she would receive. You came, he said, unable to hide the surprise in his voice. We couldn't miss our bee's big day, Carolina replied, trying on a smile. Besides, we were curious to officially meet the famous Pascal-Henri Moreau. Thank you for coming, Bianca said sincerely. It means a lot to me. Fabian, who had remained silent, finally spoke up. I must admit you caught us by surprise. B, all this time thinking we were playing with a, well, you know, and in the end we were all playing roles we weren't really, Bianca added. Maybe the biggest lesson from all of this. One of the organizers approached, indicating that it was time to begin. Bianca said goodbye to her friends with a smile, promising to talk more later, and headed to the stage where Pascal was already waiting for her. The event began with a moving video about the work of the Avenida project over the past year. Images of people being welcomed, meals being shared, professional workshops, and moments of genuine human connection moved the audience. When the video ended, Pascal stood up and walked to the center of the stage. An expectant silence fell over the room. Good morning, everyone, he began in a firm voice that carried the confidence of someone who had finally found his purpose. Many of you are wondering why Pascal-Henri Moreau, heir to Moreau Investments, has spent the last year living virtually anonymously, dedicating himself to a social project in downtown Saint Pascal. He paused, looking directly at the people in the audience. Journalists eager for a sensational story, curious businessmen, homeless people who knew him only as Pascal from the project, and finally, at Bianca, who was watching him with pride. The simple answer would be to say that it was an existential crisis after my father left, and partly it was that. But the full truth is deeper. I needed to understand the true value of things. Pascal then shared his journey, how he grew up in a bubble of privilege, how his father's obsession with hoarding kept him from genuine connections, and how, after inheriting a fortune, he realized he didn't know what to do with it other than create more wealth. I then decided to live without the filters of privilege, not to deny my origins or to carry out some voyeuristic social experiment, but to truly understand the Brazilian reality that despite living in the same country, I was completely unaware of. The audience listened intently, captured by the raw honesty of his words. What I discovered, he continued, was that the greatest poverty is not material poverty, but poverty of connection, of purpose, of meaning. And the greatest wealth is found in authentic human relationships, in the ability to make a difference in the lives of others. Pascal then formally presented the Moreau Foundation, explaining how it would be structured, its objectives, and how the Avenida project would be expanded to become a replicable model in other regions. "But this is not just my story," Pascal said, extending his hand toward Bianca. "It is also the story of someone else's transformation, who came to the project for reasons completely different from mine, but who found her own path to authenticity." Bianca took the stage, holding Pascal's outstretched hand. Together, they announced the partnership between the Moreau Foundation and Impacto Comunicação's new social responsibility division, explaining how they intended to revolutionize the way Brazilian companies engage with social causes. "This isn't about social marketing or corporate conscience washing," Bianca explained passionately. "It's about integrating genuine purpose into business, about understanding that companies are made up of people and exist within communities that deserve more than superficial actions." At the end of the presentations, the audience applauded enthusiastically. Journalists raised their hands, eager to ask questions, while potential partners chatted excitedly about possibilities for collaboration. During the Q&A session, a journalist raised a question that many thought about but hesitated to voice. "Mr. Moreau, aren't you afraid that your experience will be seen as social tourism, a rich person playing at being poor for a while before returning to his privileges?" A tense silence fell. Pascal thought for a moment before answering. "It's a valid concern. Privilege has this perverse quality to it. Even when we try to move away from it, it follows us like a shadow. The difference is what we do with this recognition. I can go back to a comfortable home whenever I want, while millions of Brazilians don't have that option. The question is, what do I do with this awareness? Do I ignore it and keep accumulating? Or do I use the resources I have to create structural changes? I chose the second path, knowing that it will be imperfect, that I will make mistakes, but believing that it is better to act imperfectly than not to act at all." The honest and thoughtful answer seemed to satisfy not only the journalist, but the audience as a whole. Donna Jana, sitting in the front row, wiped away tears of emotion. After the formal event, a simple but elegant cocktail party was served. Bianca watched with satisfaction as the different tribes present, business people, journalists, people in vulnerable situations, volunteers, chatted and mingled with a naturalness that would have been unthinkable a few weeks ago. Vicente. Moreau approached Bianca, offering her a glass of sparkling wine. "I must admit that you have exceeded my expectations, Miss Tavares," he commented with a genuine smile. "When I proposed that you approach Pascal, I never imagined that the result would be all this." "I believe you underestimated both me and your nephew, Mr. Moreau," Bianca replied with quiet confidence. "We both had much more depth than we let on." "Of course," Vicente agreed. "And now, what are the next steps for you two?" Bianca watched Pascal from across the courtyard, chatting animatedly with a group that included both executives and people working on the project. There was a naturalness to the way he moved between these worlds that fascinated her. "Balance," he finally replied. "Find a path that allows us to use our talents and privileges to make a difference without losing the authenticity we've discovered." "Quite a challenge," commented Vicente. "Yes, but now we have something we didn't have before." "What?" "Clarity of purpose," Bianca replied. "And each other." Later that evening, when the event was over and only the closest staff remained for a moment of intimate celebration, Pascal pulled Bianca to a quiet corner of the courtyard. "We did it," he said, hugging her around the waist. "The event was just the beginning," she recalled. "We have a lot of work ahead of us." "I'm not talking about the event or the foundation," Pascal clarified. "I'm talking about us. How two people who started with lies and games managed to find something true." Bianca smiled, touching his face gently. "Who would have thought that a ridiculous bet and a social experiment would bring us here? The universe has a peculiar sense of humor, Pascal replied. At that moment, Donagena approached, interrupting them with an enigmatic expression. I have something to show you two, she said, gesturing for them to follow her. Intrigued, Pascal and Bianca followed the lady to a small room at the back of the mansion. There, to their surprise, they found an old wooden box on a table. What is this? Asked Pascal. Something I've kept for many years, waiting for the right moment, Jaina replied, opening the box. Inside were yellowed documents and old photographs. Jaina picked up one of the photos and handed it to Pascal. In it, a young couple stood smiling in front of what looked like the Avenida. Project but decades ago. That man, Pascal murmured, recognizing familiar features. It's your grandfather, Henri Moreau, Jaina confirmed, and next to him, your grandmother, Helena. Pascal looked at Jaina, confused. How did you... Helena was my sister, the woman revealed with an emotional smile. Her grandfather and she met when he, a promising young businessman, came to volunteer on this same project, which had another name at the time. Bianca and Pascal exchanged surprised looks. He came from a wealthy family. She was the daughter of immigrants from the northeast who struggled to survive in São Pascal, Jaina continued, an unlikely love that faced prejudice from both sides. My father never told me this story, Pascal said, examining other photographs showing his grandfather and grandmother at different points in their lives. Henri and his family had a falling out when he announced that he was marrying Helena. For years they lived modestly, until Henri was able to establish his own business, what would become Moreau Investments. Pascal absorbed every word, mentally rewriting his family's history. Helena never forgot her roots, Jaina continued. Even when they became wealthy, she insisted on staying connected to social projects, especially this one. After her departure, Henri distanced himself from these causes, and his son, his father Pascal, grew up without knowing this part of his family history. Why are you telling us this now? Bianca asked, puzzled. Jaina smiled, looking at them both fondly. Because stories have the power to repeat themselves, sometimes in ways we can't imagine. When I saw the two of you, coming from different worlds, finding each other in this same place, building something meaningful together, I knew it was time to reveal that past. Pascal looked deeply moved. So, in a way, I'm just returning to the family roots. Exactly, Jaina agreed. The money you inherited started here, with a young man who, like you, sought meaning beyond the obvious, and a young woman who, like Bianca, had the strength and determination to change realities. That revelation brought a new dimension to Pascal and Bianca's journey. It wasn't just about them, but about a cycle that was coming to an end, about connections that transcended time and circumstance. In the following months, the Moreau Foundation began to take shape. The Avenida project was expanded, new centers were created in different regions of the city, and structured programs for education, housing, and entrepreneurship were implemented. Bianca, in turn, transformed Impacto Comunicação's social responsibility division into a success story, attracting clients who genuinely wanted to make a difference beyond superficial marketing. 6 months after the project began, Ricardo called her to announce that the division would be expanded, becoming one of the agency's strategic pillars. Pascal and Bianca moved in together, transforming it into a space that reflected the integration of their worlds. They maintained the understated elegance, but included elements that recalled their experiences in the project. Photographs of the people served, crafts produced in the workshops, books on social transformation. One Sunday morning, while they were having coffee on the balcony overlooking the garden, Pascal surprised Bianca with a small velvet box. It's not exactly a marriage proposal, he explained, noticing her surprised expression. It's too early for that. It's more of a symbol. Inside the box was a simple but elegant ring, made of recycled gold and set with a small Brazilian stone. It was made by one of our beneficiaries of the Foundation's jewelry program, Pascal explained. Each piece tells a story of transformation. Bianca put on the ring, moved by the meaning behind the gift. It's perfect, she said, admiring how the piece perfectly captured the essence of what they had built together, something valuable not just for its material, but more importantly, for its history and purpose. "You know what's amazing?" Pascal mused, looking at the ring on Bianca's finger. "How we started with a superficial bet and a social experiment, and ended up discovering something that all the money in the world could not buy." "Authenticity," Bianca added. "And love," Pascal added, leaning in to kiss her. On that peaceful morning, while the St. Pascal sun illuminated the garden and the city pulsed in the distance, Bianca and Pascal savored not only their breakfast, but the certainty that they had found each other when they least expected it, and that together they were rewriting not only their personal stories, but contributing to transforming the narrative of a city marked by contrasts and inequalities. The road ahead would be challenging, balancing their worlds, maintaining their earned authenticity while navigating social and professional expectations, building a foundation that would truly matter. None of it would be easy. But now they had something they had lacked before, a shared purpose and an understanding that true value lies not in appearances, but in the ability to create genuine connections and transform realities. And so, in a city where superficiality often dictates the rules, Bianca and Pascal discovered that true wealth lies in the courage to be authentic, in the privilege of making a difference, and in the beauty of finding each other when they both finally lowered their masks and allowed themselves to be seen as they truly were. The more you comment and share, the more we can bring you stories that touch your heart. Leave your name in the comments and we may include you in one of our next stories with a special greeting just for you.